Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Maloni, kia orana, talofa lava. Thank you for coming to our unexpectedly short notice meeting. But with all good intentions, yeah, thank you for coming and making the effort to come on this beautiful cold day. I just want to quickly just say a prayer just to start our meeting today. Sorry, I'm having to use my phone. My laptop's not working, but here we are. So I'll just do open up a prayer, and then we'll do introductions. So I'll just get out of here. So our prayer for this morning, if we can bow our heads in prayer. Te atua tomato tamana. Our Father God, hako e tai ki tō aloha mō ki mātou. Thank you for your love for us. Hako e tai ki tō hakatahi mai I te mātou honotanga. Thank you for being with us during our hono. I te ingoa o Yehu, in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you. So just going to, I'm one of the Pasefika Network committee members. So I'm the treasurer, elected treasurer for our committee. And I also work for Capital and Coast DHB. So I can just do, if our committee that are on board now, if they would like to introduce themselves, perhaps I'll start with Kahu, please.
Malo lele, welcome everybody. My name is Kahu. Lesiale Tahafe, and I'm the PSA Pasefika Network Secretary. And also I'm from Department of Internal Affairs. I sit as the Vamoana delegate in that agency. Malo obito.
Catalina.
Malone, ko toko ingoa ko Pasefika Catalina se misi. Ko au he toke lau, Samoa, ma te PSA Pasefika Women's Rep, ma te MSD Vamoana delegate. Ko au he ngaluenga I te MSD Wellington National Office, ki te ngaluenga o te data ma te visual analytics. So just welcome, hello. My name is Pasefika Catalina Semisi. I'm the PSA Pasefika Women's Rep, the Vamoana MSD delegate. I work in MSD Wellington in the areas of data analytics. Ake he tai lahi lele. Thank you.
Thanks, Catalina. And we also have our organizer for the Pasefika Network here, Stella Tiariki.
Thanks, Nia. Kia rana koutou kata tō te aroa māta o te toa. Ko raumaru tuku maunga, ko horota tuku waka, ko rarotonga rawa ko Mauke ngā mutu, ko te moana nui a Kiwa te moana, ko William tuku mātua, ko Tere Api tuku whaia, tuku turu ngā tuahine, tuku whā ngā tungane, ko Chaz tuku tama, no koke ārani a hau, ko Pākia he tangata, he taniwha he tipuna, ko Stella a hau. Kia ora everybody. Stella Tiariki, PSA organiser based in Wellington. I have responsibility for the PSA Pasefika Network. I also organise the corrections, frontline prisons members, and also Treasury. And fantastic to be here today. And just so you know, I'll be coming in and out in that, but I'm looking forward to the kōrero with all of you today.
Thank you, Stella. There are quite a few of us on here this morning. Perhaps if I could start with some of our Vamoana delegates who are here, if they'd like to quickly introduce themselves. Brian Palangi, if you don't mind leading.
Whakalokore atu, everyone. Brian Palangi, Vamoana delegate for Waka Kotahi New Zealand Transport Agency, based in Auckland. And good to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And Fua, please, if you can introduce yourself. And when you finish, please, Fua, if you can choose another Vamoana delegate.
Talofa lava everyone. I'm from MBIE. I am the Vamoana for MBIE and am currently a immigration officer here. I see Kahu right next to me.
Thanks for already introduced myself. Not sure. I'm trying to find some other ones on there too.
Oh, Lou Allen from the DHB Sector Committee. Hi,
Hey,
Lou
I
Allen.
can hear you.
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Did you want to introduce yourself, Lou Allen, please?
Sure. Talofa lava, my name is Llewellyn Tilibave. I am based at ADHB in a new role, secondment role as the PA to the mental health co-directors. So I'm blessed to be in this role for the next 6 months, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. But also, yes, sector delegate, and this will be my first term, which is definitely a huge learning experience. But what a way to start, especially with everything that's been going on with pay equity, the mapping that's work that will be coming up, and yeah, no, loving the engagement and being involved. Yeah, definitely feel blessed to be a part of this forum.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, cool,
If I could perhaps have, are there any other Vamoana delegates on here? Sorry, I'm using my phone. I'm having technical issues.
I see Iseta.
Oh, Iseta.
Te ao manuia, everybody. Sorry, I was 6 minutes late. Are we doing introductions, are we?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Te ao manuia, e seta in a photo.
I kind of lost you, Iseta. It might be me, but
Yeah, you lost her.
I'm here.
okay.
I think you're breaking in and out, Iseta.
Okay.
Do you want to introduce yourself again?
Okay. Te ao manuia, everybody. Iseta Aching, I'm one delegate from IRD.
Thank you, Iseta. So there's quite a few of us on here, as I mentioned before. We've got a few more minutes before our guest speaker comes on board. Is there anyone else that wants to, has a burning desire to introduce themselves before our guest speaker comes? You're welcome to jump in. I see Matt Jameson.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Matthew Jameson. I'm currently a Senior Housing Support Manager for Kāinga Ora, and so I'm also one of the national delegates for Kāinga Ora. Nice to be on here. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Hi, I'm not introducing myself. I'm just letting you know that I can hear and see everyone, but for some reason I'm frozen, so I can't mute or stop my video. Just letting you know.
All good, Catalina. I see Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. Talofa. Wow, it's amazing to see some really great and amazing and empowering humans, and especially the wahine toa that I've come to know in the union space. So thank you, Nia. I see the lovely, beautiful, amazing Kahu and Catalina, everyone I know. Thank you for hosting this whānau. So I am Jennifer Laulala. This is my 3.5 week into the new role at Kainga Ora at the moment. And it's a blessing to see everyone in here, and nice to meet Matthew Jameson, that I had a brief kōrero with you on the phone for, you know, about things in the union space. But I'm not a Vāmoana delegate. I'm just a very passionate Pasifika little person.
Thank you, Jennifer. Alice, Leota Alice Meredith.
Hello, for everyone. Yes, Leota Alice Meredith. I'm with Auckland Council. I too am not a Vāmoana delegate. However, I am too a very passionate PSA supporter. And right now I'm also putting my name forward to being the, what is it? Pasifika? No. Yeah, Pasifika Women's Regional. So yeah. So I might as well turn around and put myself out there. So if you have a vote, hello, malo se fua. Cheers.
Thank you, Leota Alice. Could I have Mr. Deberg 005 to introduce, being one of the first people to come on today? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah. Tolofalawa, my name is Dan Burgess. Originally from Auckland, but moved down to New Plymouth, and I am a employment coordinator for Work and Income. And I am, yeah, so I saw this come through my email, so I just thought I'll just jump on and yeah, connect with a wider network in regards to being Pasifika.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. And Hio Kelemete.
Hello, Mutavano. My name is Hio. I'm at IIC, MSD in Lower Hutt. Yeah, like Dan, just out of interest, and the email came to me last night, and I got my boss to approve it for me. So here I am, ready to listen.
Awesome. Thank you, Hio. And I think we've got one of our co-conveners here, Ofena. Would you like to introduce yourself, please? I think I saw Ofena.
Yes. Malalele, everyone. I'm just on the road. But yeah, good morning. My name is Ofena Manuel Barbarich. I am based in Auckland. I'm a project manager, Pacific Equity and Northern Regional Alliance. And it's so good to see so many familiar faces on this morning. And yeah, when I arrive at my destination, I'll be able to turn my camera on. Malo abuto.
Thank you, Ofena. And I think we've got a couple more people that can introduce them. Sarah Passmore.
Malo lele, everyone. So I'm Sarah Passmore. I work at MSD in Youth Service. And in my spare time, I'm just about to start doing a PhD through Victoria University. And this is my first Pasifika PSA event, and really happy to be here and to meet you all.
Thank you. Welcome. We might be able to squeeze one more person. I don't know. Somebody, if you're willing to take the mic before our guest speaker comes, feel free to introduce yourself. I'll choose the person then. Danica.
Hi guys, do I have to turn my camera on?
No.
Okay.
Say whatever you want.
Hi, I'm Danica. I work for MSD in Lower Hutt. And yeah, I just got the email, never been a part of any of these Zoom calls before, so I just thought I'd give it a go and see what it's all about.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Is there anyone in the office today though? But it's good to see you all here. Thank you. So we're just waiting for our guest to come. EJ. Oh, here he is. Good morning, Magandang umaga, Dennis.
Magandang umaga, Nia.
¿Cómo está?
Mabuti. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, everyone. So perfect timing. This is our guest speaker, everybody. Dennis Maga. He is the General Secretary of the First Union New Zealand. He's the first New Zealander of Asian descent to lead a major trade union. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, I believe you've been with First Union since November 2007, so about 14 years and 7 months.
That's correct. Yeah, good information.
Oh, you know, my Uncle Google. And that you were elected as the General Secretary in November 2017.
That's correct, yes.
Born in the Philippines, a well-known activist and union leader. I believe you've helped lead many campaigns to improve the lives of migrant workers and end education trafficking. Like us, you believe in the concept of social movement unionism. You've got quite an impressive list of achievements, Dennis. You founded Migrant Aotearoa New Zealand in 2009 for Filipino migrant workers. You founded the Union Network of Migrants, UNE-MIG, the Migrant Workers of Section of First Union in 2012. And you helped establish the Indian Workers Association, IWA, in 2014. In recognition of the growing number of Indian migrant workers and immigrants within First Union. And you're a member of the government's Future of Work Tripartite Forum. And the reason for you being here also is to discuss the modern slavery and worker exploitation. All of that's going through. I believe the submission period ends on the 7th of June. And with you being a member of the reference group of the Temporary Migrant Workers Exploitation Review by MB. So I'd like to warmly introduce and welcome Dennis Maga to the Pasefika Network here. Applause from everybody. Thank you. Dennis, it's all yours. The floor is yours. Take it away. You can share your presentation and any other information. And at the end of the presentation, if you're fine to actually take some, questions from our members here. And just letting you know, everybody, Dennis has kindly offered his time from now until just after 11. Dennis, is that still okay?
After 11, yes, that's correct, yes.
Yeah. So the floor is yours, Dennis. Thank you very much.
Cool, Nia. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I was really humbled by that. Talufalaba, Malay, Bula, it is a good opportunity for me to address the PSA Pasefika and discuss about the modern slavery because I'm so passionate about this issue. Migrant workers exploitation, and even though I've been here for almost 15 years, I'm still considering myself as part of that migrant community. Being brown, you will always be identified as part of them. And the second one is I'm also actually passionate about the RSA workers because when we started doing some work there, I've seen first-hand information about the exploitation in the horticulture or agriculture industry, the way Pasefika workers have been treated by those employers recruiting them to work here in New Zealand. And the famous case, for example, is Joseph Mata, and I'm sure you're fully aware of that. The Hawke's Bay case, the first trafficking case in New Zealand. Yeah, so when the government invited me to be part of the Modern Slavery Leadership Advisor Group to represent the Council of Trade Union, I grabbed that opportunity straight away because for a long time we've been asking that how come we don't have modern slavery legislation in Aotearoa, but in the UK they have one, in Australia they have one as well. So and I think for a long time we've been hiding the fact that exploitation in New Zealand is actually happening at the same time that there's also element of human trafficking. So it was good that non-governmental organizations step up, and later on I'll be presenting my PowerPoint just to give some background about that. Cool. All right, so I'm going to be sharing my PowerPoint. Yeah. I hope you can see the main PowerPoint.
Yes. Thanks, Jenna.
Do you see the big screen or the small screen?
We see the front part of your presentation. I think
Okay.
it's the
Yeah. It's not the one covered by the black one, eh? It's the main screen. Okay, cool. Because I'm using two screens, and sometimes I just realize that people see the small screen. Yeah. Okay, so this is the modern slavery legislation, and the government is hoping that this will be legislated within their term. Okay. Now, the reason why we have this modern slavery legislation, it is because there are many incidents happen abroad and even in New Zealand. For example, if ever we discuss about abroad, I don't know if ever you heard about what happened in Bangladesh in 2013, the Rana Plaza, killing 1,134 people when when the building collapsed. In fact, it triggered an international uproar, investigation about the practice in Bangladesh. So therefore, we were critical of many companies importing their products from Bangladesh at that point, and we asked them to do some audit to make sure that we are not buying clothing or anything coming from Bangladesh, and yet they are actually victims of exploitation. In Italy, another example is their agricultural sector. There are about 300,000 workers, and 100,000 of them have been suspected of suffering from severe exploitation, and majority are reportedly working 17 hours a day. So we thought that this only happened during the early days, like in the 60s, 70s. We realized that it's still happening nowadays. Thailand's fishing sector is another example. 140,000 migrant fishers work at least 16 hours a day for less than 10 New Zealand dollars, because that's actually an equivalent of $15.50 in their country. So that's really actually concerning. And of course, New Zealand is not an isolated country. We are part of the bigger supply chain or the global supply chain. So therefore, we have to do some work in this area. So in New Zealand, I don't know if ever you heard the organization Walk Free. They estimated that in 2016, around 3,000 people were in conditions of modern slavery. Okay, so that's a New Zealand context. And then the World Vision estimates that the Kiwi households spend approximately of $34 each week on industries whose products are implicated in modern slavery. And I tell you what, for example, the bananas we buy in the Philippines, yes, they are so yellow, they are so good. You know what, I'm gonna be telling you a story because I came from the Philippines. If ever you living in the Philippines, you cannot buy bananas like that. We always buy bananas that are actually you can really see that they are not for export because there are many browns or blacks within the banana. And then we realized later on that those plain yellow, they are actually for export. And then we also found out that many of these banana plantation workers are victims of exploitation. In fact, they are not even allowed to form their own union in the agricultural sector. So this is actually a concern that if ever we are buying the stuff and yet we're not investigating about the situation of the workers overseas, and that's going to be problematic because we are eating this food and we're sharing this with our family members as well. Okay. The third one is the case of Joseph Matamata, and as I said earlier, this is the famous one, the first human trafficking conviction in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Yeah. Now, the government under the Ministry of Michael Wood formed the Modern Slavery Leadership Advisor Group. So just to give you an idea who the members are, Rob Fife, he is the chair. He was the chief executive of Air New Zealand before he was replaced by a new one. Then Gary Shaw from Kathmandu, an ex-policeman who investigated trafficking in Thailand and overseas. who's now working for Kathmandu and very active in modern slavery. Kerry Hannafin from Countdown. And the rest, you can see that they're coming from different non-governmental organizations. So it's a mix-up. And I'm the only one coming from the workers, the working sector or the workers. And then I've been actually working strictly with some of those academic researchers about modern slavery and non-governmental organization, because you can understand that some of this discussion is actually a mix-up of business perspective and workers' perspective. So within the advisor group, we have to win over the opinion of the members of modern slavery to understand the situation of the workers. So the purpose of this is actually to support the legislation for modern slavery. And why now? Look, we are aware of this issue. And as I said, UK has modern slavery, Australia has modern slavery legislations, and yet New Zealand is quite behind about the modern slavery. So we've been asking ourselves that how come there is none? So therefore, Trade Aid World Vision, they called for petitions to enact a modern slavery in New Zealand. And it was actually launched last year. And in fact, I was one of the keynote speakers when the petition was handed over to the government, which we really appreciated, because it's about time that we should have legislation in the country. Okay. Now, what is being proposed? So this is modern slavery, and I'm going to give you some ideas straight away that this will not address criminal liability. This is more on a due diligence-based legislation, and later on I will explain what do we mean by due diligence. This is actually supported by guidance and tools to help improve the practices of the businesses. This is actually developing the culture and accountability of businesses. And this actually came from United Nations guiding principles on business and human rights. All right. So we are referring to that document, the ethical standard. But we've been saying to governments, international, that it's not simply having an ethical standard as part of their marketing tool to sell their business, but it's also an obligation that how do they prevent modern slavery and migrant workers' exploitation in their industry and their supply chain. Now, the next one is that what is the definition of modern slavery? So I'm going to read that. It's a severe exploitation that a person cannot leave due to threats. That's one element, violence or deception. It includes forced labor, death, bondage, forced marriage, slavery, and human trafficking. All right. And if ever you notice, I'm going to be using two terms here. One is modern slavery, and the other one is migrant workers exploitation. Okay. The second term is, what do we mean by supply chains? So basically, these are actually networks that work together to transform raw materials into finished goods, and even including services. So anything from raw materials from the produced, from the agricultural area, up to the point that they sell that in the supermarket or retail or any businesses, up to the point that it is actually being presented to you in your kitchen, in your table. That's going to be part of the bigger supply chain. And when we say operations, we are clarifying that this is all investment, because there are some arguments that, for example, what if ever I'm just buying stocks, or the company just invested through shares like Bitcoin, or if ever Superfund, for example, just simply put up some money in some business overseas. Are we also accountable to this modern slavery? Are we also accountable to due diligence? And the quick answer is yes, because that is part of operations. So it's not simply the manufacturing side or distribution, but even actually the stocks or the shares, like our KiwiSaver, it's part of the entire operations throughout the supply chain. Now, this is the nitty-gritty of modern slavery, because this is actually the responsibility of which company must undertake due diligence and must investigate their supply chain. So for example, in this situation, the recommendation of Modern Slavery Advisor Group is we can identify the size of the business based on the revenue. So it's a small, medium, and large. When you say small, it's a $20 million company. Medium, $20 to $50 million company. Large, more than 50 million. Just to let you know, there is a debate here, and I'm also part of the debate, because it's hard to gauge. When you say $20 million business, what are the examples of them? And I think the AMB is struggling to give us a consistent example. Because for me, it also, the gauge or the measurement of business also must identify the number of employees and their operation in the country. It's not simply about revenue. I can understand the revenue is so simple because you can just look at this information in the website and their financial statement, and that's going to be it. But we don't know if this is going to be happening, but majority actually endorse this. We have some minority opinion about this one. Okay. Now, in terms of due diligence, which is the aim is actually to prevent, mitigate, and remedy modern slavery and worker exploitation by New Zealand entities where they are parent or holding company or have significant contractual control. So that's going to be small, medium, and large. All of them must do it. However, there is some point about small business, which I'm going to be discussing in the next slide, that not all small businesses will undertake due diligence. There are only selected of them, especially if ever they are a parent or controlling company. Okay. The third one is to disclose the steps they are taking to address modern slavery, international and domestic operations. There was an initial discussion that how come the small businesses, they are not part of this disclosure, but why only medium to large? And the organization or the business organization representing the business there have said that it is about cost, it's about resources. They don't have the capacity for a full disclosure. And I can understand where they're coming from, but at least we have to find a way that they have to be encouraged. Otherwise, we also have argument that 90% of exploitation happening in Aotearoa, New Zealand is actually perpetrated by small businesses. So therefore, disclosure is also very important for this size. Okay. Now, in terms of number 4, which is a more comprehensive due diligence, both international and domestic, this is actually getting a third party to be involved in that area. And this is a very an expensive exercise. So it was identified that this is going to be a responsibility of a large company. Yeah. Now, some of you may ask questions. What's the difference between Australian model and New Zealand model? The Australian model, the 1, 2, 3, and 4, this is only for large companies. In New Zealand version, we have introduced the responsibility of a small and medium enterprise. That's the big difference between the two. That's why our counterpart in Aussie have been saying to us that their one is so limited because they can only work with large enterprise, and those small and medium are getting away from migrant workers exploitation and modern slavery. Okay. Now, of course, these proposals are designed to have wide-ranging impact because we would like to have consumers' confidence when they're buying products. Businesses can operate ethically, and they can actually be accountable if ever they fail to follow this guidance. And of course, we would like to identify remedy for victims and survivors of modern slavery. So what due diligence would I need to do? Okay, so this is about the due diligence model now. For small, medium, and large, they have to do a regular surveying of suppliers to assess competence with protecting human rights and employment standards. So therefore, they are being encouraged to make sure that they have a way to investigate supply chain. Okay, sorry if I missed my camera there. So they have to identify the supply chain. So that's basically how it works. By doing so, you can see that they are proactive and making sure that they are not engaging with unethical companies. In fact, when we were doing this exercise, a couple of companies who belong to that modern slavery advisor group have started identifying companies that they should not be working with, especially if ever they're operating as a franchise. So that's a good start, but I don't know how sustainable the model is. It's remained to be seen, but at least we have a platform to do so. We have a legislation that we can say to these employers that you have some sort of obligation under this modern slavery guidance. Yeah. Now, it's also very important for transparency that there's actually a third-party audit. So they can conduct suppliers compliance. They can actually check whether they are doing actually the right thing. All right. And it's very important that we're also establishing mechanisms for people to voice out their concerns. So part of this would be how do you encourage the workers' voice or the people's voice, the community voice, to report anomalies in the supply chain. Okay. And then the fourth one is actually educating the suppliers. It's very important that you want to engage with New Zealand companies, and we encourage New Zealand companies to set out the conditions that if ever you would like to operate in our market and work with our businesses in New Zealand, this will be our guidance under modern slavery. And if ever you fail to do so, then we have the right to change our supplier. Okay. Now, what would an organization have to do if they find modern slavery or exploitation in their supply chains? The first one is report the case to the appropriate authority. So MB, there could be labor inspectors, they could be Immigration New Zealand. So these will be the authorities to check it out. If ever it's a supply chain, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade can also intervene. We can also write to the ambassadors, or we can also inform the government themselves overseas about our concern, including their partners in New Zealand. And then that's going to be the number 2, working with their supplier to address and prevent the harm. So that is the disclosure we want from medium and large enterprises, that when they are working with suppliers, we need to know what are the steps they have identified, all right, to prevent the harm, especially if ever there was a report of anomaly in the supply chain. And then the third one, if ever the supply chain, especially the suppliers, wouldn't action the remedy, then we're going to be encouraging the company to change suppliers. And I think this is going to be the role of the public, the role of the union to pressure New Zealand companies that if ever they continue this kind of modern slavery and migrant workers exploitation in the host country, then they have to change suppliers. Okay. All right. So which small and medium-sized organizations have to undertake due diligence? All right. Only small and medium where they have actually a full control. They could be of another company. So meaning they are considered as economic employer, they are considered as a parent company. And when you say control, they can actually control the supply, they can control the price, they can also control the marketing. So because they own the brand. So meaning if ever they own the franchise, they own the logo, the brand, they are actually a parent company, they are economic employers. So they have accountability to that. Okay, I'll give you an example. For example, if ever you're a Chorus, and there are contractors operating in your business, the way you can actually design your van is based on the logo of Chorus. So meaning, Chorus is a controlling company, although they are not small and medium enterprise, but that just gives you some idea about what do we mean by controlling company. Okay. Now, how does an organization know whether the actions they take are reasonable and proportionate? It's going to be based on the entity size and resources, the nature of the control, influence the entity, has it over its supplier, good practice in the entity sector, sector-specific risk. So there's going to be a risk analysis as well, and the degree and type of harm that could result if no action is taken. I think the best example I can share to you is that when First Union took up the case of Globe, the Top Globe brand, they are based in Malaysia. And we found out that in Malaysia, they are working 16 hours a day. They're being forced to work overtime by the company so they can meet the demands. This is actually during the pre-pandemic period. And the demand actually doubled up because of the pandemic. So many workers have been forced to work overtime instead the company employing more staff. So what happened is that, yes, they're working 16 hours a day, but they're only paid normal hours. And we also found out that some of them are not getting sick leave entitlement and other stuff that is written in their employment agreement or their contract. So when we found out about this, our partner Building Workers International, the Global Union Federation that looks after them, informed us. And we contacted Foodstuffs Pack and Save straight away because they are selling Top Gloves. And because of our proactive approach and the media as well, which played a major role, Pack and Save decided to pull out that glove, that product, the Top Glove. And then we also found out, which is embarrassing, that our super fund, is also has also invested money to that company. So we also had a meeting with them that they have to voice out their concern to make sure that the workers will be compensated accordingly. Superfund wasn't happy with us, but because we had to take this case publicly. But however, we were able to address that, which is I'm happy about. Okay. Now, so what are we proposing here? Why we're not proposing an import ban on goods made with modern slavery? This is actually a government question, okay? The government response is that because they want actually a wider culture and behavior that changes by business and consumers, reach deeper into supply chains, including into service supply chains, and target the source of the problem. So if ever you summarize that, it's more on encouraging the business to be proactive and develop a culture and behavior in their supply chain. However, we also reiterated to the government and even within the Modern Slavery Leadership Advisor Group that, for example, in the US, if ever your company has been identified as a perpetrator of modern slavery in your country or international supply chain, they can ban the company straight away. Because US banned the company, then we have an information straight away with our partner country that this company is not good. Because why the US would actually ban you if there is no reason to do so? So this is my reservation about the modern slavery, why we are not banning those companies. And hopefully, even if ever this will be legislated in the future, this could be actually considered because the model is still based on the trust that companies will be doing this kind of behavioral changes in the supply chain. It's remain to be seen, to be honest. Okay. So what would remedying modern slavery or work exploitation look like? It's going to be compensation for those victims. The cessation of a particular activity or relationship, so meaning you have to change your supplier, and arrangements to ensure the harm will not happen again. So meaning if ever the supply chain has been identified as perpetrators of exploitation or modern slavery, they have to warn them or they have to inform them that these are the steps to make sure that these problems will not happen in the future. But some company can easily divert their supply. So I think there was a scandal earlier this year about Dyson product, one franchise operating in Asia. And then the Dyson operation, the global Dyson straight away took away the franchise because they don't want to be affected. Okay. Now, there is actually a consultation about this one. Do you think New Zealand needs to address modern slavery and work exploitation and supply chain? And if so, how should we do it? How would this affect you? And there's also a link. But for me, the bigger question here for me is this. How do you think New Zealand will benefit from modern slavery legislation, especially if ever we look after the RSE workers in the country? Because if ever this is legislated, we would like to see that this will also be applied to Pacific nations, especially those countries that sending seasonal workers in New Zealand, because we've been receiving a lot of report about abuses using the family hierarchy so they can work unpaid. And then they are being threatened once they go back to their islands, that because they complained to New Zealand government, some of them had been actually beaten up, and some of them had been actually harassed by their own government and been told that you can no longer work in New Zealand, because some of them, the government itself, the High Commissioner is acting like they are the recruitment agency. Okay. So it's a very important question. And I think a lot of you have family members, relatives there. And this is very close to our heart, especially to us as well. Our own Committee Pasefika is also involved. I'm also passionate about the RC workers, and hopefully we can have a discussion like that in this session. I'm going to stop share now and open to questions.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for your presentation. Am I echoing? Sorry. I think we've got a Catalina.
Thank you, Dennis, for your presentation. It was really informative. Opened my eyes to...
Catalina, can you speak up? We can't hear you very well.
Is this better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, sorry, my everything's frozen. So thank you, Dennis. Your presentation was really informative. It opened my eyes to what is happening overseas in New Zealand. I think for me, being a Pasifika person, and you know, within our demographics within Pasifika, is there a website or anywhere where we can go in and sort of see what are the main groups that are being affected? You know, is it mostly women, children? What are the ethnic groups, and is there anecdotal evidence, you know, especially to make sure that you're supported in this legislation going forward. And it's really interesting that, you know, there's the big companies versus the smaller companies. You mentioned that in New Zealand, 90% are small companies versus overseas. The reason why I'm interested in the, you know, the website is that knowing who are the offenders, and also, even though New Zealand is, we've got a majority of the small businesses, we also need to know the bigger companies, because they are driven by profit. You know, so you've got brands like Nike, you know, other major brands, and unfortunately, as Pasifika people, we like our brands. Sometimes there's a tendency here in New Zealand, we're a bit isolated. But it's good for us as New Zealanders to also know what's happening overseas. So that's my question to you, Dennis, in regards to where can we go in regards, to
I
finding
think that's a very good question, because we also discussed that within the advisor group. The idea is that once this is legislated, there's going to be a website, a single information website where you can download those specific questions of yours. Because right now, the information that I can provide to you will be coming from different organizations. World Trade, they have their own research. Trade Aid, they also have information about this one. And then there are also academic research done by Christina Stringer and some of those participants. The problem with this is that if ever there are many informations around us, we will be overwhelmed by this information. So therefore, we would like to have a centralized information where anyone who would like to understand modern slavery, they can just only go to that single website. So that's the idea. Yeah. And that information will give you some idea who are actually the victims. For example, Nike, they are being produced in Vietnam. Is there a child labor there? Believe me, there were some reports. In China, we're buying iPhone actually, and some of the parts are being done in China. And there were also reports about exploitation there. So these are the things that will be challenging. But however, we need to have this information in order to mitigate actually the risk and prevent the harm, especially to the working people. So the idea is that there will be a bank of information where we can actually get them. But if ever you need it now, we can provide you information, but it's going to be coming from different places. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for that.
Good, Dennis. Good, Dennis. Jennifer here. It's just that I have to go to another hui soon, but I want to ask a question. I really, really enjoyed your presentation. As Catalina said, it's really eye-opening. For me, I haven't been part of a forum before where this was discussed. So I'm really thankful to the Pasifika Network for, you know, inviting you to come along and starting this kōrero. So my question is, what are you hoping for the Pasifika Network going forward to do in terms of this piece of mahi? I know there's a, saw on the slide, sorry, that there's a legislation, you know, starting to get into the mix there. Secondly, I was just thinking of the word modern slavery, and I'm trying to relate it, you know, exactly to where I am and where I sit in my work and my whānau. And I think, you know, for Pasifika workers, also you mentioned the seasonal workers there, you know, and also, and I saw on the chat someone mentioned contact centers, you know. I guess I have too many questions because it's a very, very interesting subject. And it's just a realization as you're talking about so many things that is attached to modern slavery that I'm trying to bring it back to where I am and what that looks like in my current, even in my current role, because I don't think it's foreign from where we currently sit. So the question is, like, first, what would you like Pasefika to do and take away from your presentation today? Secondly, the seasonal workers, the contact centers, and even an everyday role in our maki. Where can we go? I guess, is it okay if we just email you and start this conversation and you know, bring it into the union space, bring it into our teams, where we sit, bring it into our, when I say union space, in our own workplaces and things? Is that something that you expect from us?
Sure. Those are good questions. I'll have them. Just to let you know, the president of the Union Network of Migrants, or UNIMIG, is a PSA organizer. Yeah, his name is Mandip Singh Bella. In fact, being the president of the UNIMIG, he's now in New York representing the migrant workers in New Zealand for a United Nations meeting about Global Forum on Migration and the Global Compact on Migration as well. So within PSA, Mandip is the go-to guy. If ever Nia can actually work with Mandip so he can collect those information. I think your Assistant Secretary, Bronwyn Maxwell, is working closely with Mandip regarding that. The next one is this. In terms of the Pasefika, look, this is actually my concern when I'm dealing with the bureaucrats within the government about RSE. Because the solution that they are placing is actually coming from bureaucrats, especially white ones, have been actually telling us that this is how we're going to deal with these RSE workers. For me, we need to own that space. The Pasefika must have a voice and must have a space every time we are discussing RSE workers. Because last time, when I was invited to be part of the RSE reference group, there was no one from the Committee Pasefika, and I was really pissed off. Sorry about that, to say this, that yes, they invited me, but isn't it actually much better if ever there is someone from the Pasefika representing their own community? Yeah. So in terms of tripartite engagement, we have to assert that we are part of it. Because these are our people. These are your people. And you can articulate it very well. Because a lot of them, this is the situation of RSE workers. When they've been asked to work in New Zealand, they are employers, which I'm really pissed off, to be honest. They've been instructed not to socialize with Samoan community, with the Tongan community. They're just being held up in their own barracks. And in fact, some employers impose curfew hours. And the worst thing I heard, some employer even imposed that you are not even allowed to have sex because they don't want to have any relationship or engagement that might result into pregnancy, and then you will not be able to operate accordingly. So those are ridiculous actually situation. And the accommodation is a standard complaint. Even access to water, proper water, is also a standard complaint. Yeah. So we need to own that space. We need to be part of that. And I think we have to inform the minister that the Pasefika Network should be or must be part of any tripartite discussion going forward. Yeah.
Dennis, can I just intervene in there? We were involved when the RSE scheme first came about. C2 Committee Pasefika were highly involved, along with NDU and E2, and it was a tripartite relationship, and we used ILO conventions as well to be able to guide us through it as well. And pretty much that government department kicked us out. And at that time it was the Department of Labour. And so yesterday in that conversation, getting concerned that MB want to be the government department that leads this. And so we need to you're right, we need to make sure we muscle ourselves in there so that we are that voice for Pacific workers.
That's right. Because the recent one, there's no Committee Pacifica. It was First Union and A1s. It's like, I keep on saying the Runanga is invited if ever there's a Maori involvement. How come there's no Committee Pacifica in the RC? And the government had said to me, oh, we'll take that on board. The problem is that they keep on replacing the bureaucrats who are leading the space. No, now I've been asking who is now responsible here. And I've been told that, oh, they have a new one. And that person, based on that person's perspective, is actually problematic, whether they will include us or not, okay? The next one is this. This is going to be the next roll of the Pacifica Network. In terms of migrant workers exploitation, would you believe that migrants actually prefer to sit down and speak to fellow brown workers rather than go to white people to discuss about their concerns? In my experience, when I handled migrant exploitation when I was an organizer, many of them were referred by Maori and Pacifica workers in our work site. Yeah. I think because there is also some psychological and there's also some sort of they are comfortable because we are sharing the same culture, we share the same food. They are actually comfortable sharing that information. So it's not only the Pacifica, but even the vulnerable workers who are basically migrant workers in the country. We can also actually play in that role to be the voice for them, to advocate for them, and to find people who can actually help them. I think that's going to be a good way to do so. Yeah. And the third one, like what I've said.
If I may, please.
Sorry.
Sorry. No, go ahead, Dennis. You've got your third one. And
Yeah. And I think that the third one is if ever it is within the PSA, then Mandip is the go-to person. The CTU, there is also now diversity culture that discusses this problem. And I'm happy to be involved as well because the government asked me to continue my work on migrant workers exploitation and modern slavery. But I think at the end, we have to find a way how to consolidate this information a single line. So this is not going to be a scattered initiative. And I think the CTU that is being discussed right now will be the way to go to.
Thank you, Dennis. If I may, only because I too have to run away to my next one. Pacifica Voice, it is actually quite sad to hear that we have a PSA person who is non-Pacifica and also a previous Pacifica team that actually were part of these talks that fell through, and that although they were kicked out, it wasn't picked up and brought back to the Pacifica committee, which is supposedly the voice for Pacifica workers. Okay, so we have to get our in-house first sorted. That for me is our own part. For the RSA workers, what you have highlighted is something that we can actually support. And again, like how Catalina Tulolava Apifusia, as she had mentioned, how is it that we can move together, and also others, how can we move together so that we can actually get this done? You've already got the evidence, you've got the work. What is it that we're needing to submit to come alongside you? And for me, initially here at this meeting here, I even, although it's informal talk and that, I personally will even move a motion, even though there's no motion could be said, it's not a meeting of sorts, but I also openly declare that we support. And those of us here are keen. This is a great turnout from one of the really good turnouts for a meeting of such modern slavery. And when is our next meeting to actually have this sorted? Again, I'm going to leave this into the capable hands of the co-conveners to actually call our meeting and actually together with our our conveners and our workers. What's Stella's role again? Apologies, Stella, no offense meaning, but together for us to actually have a constructed. Apologies, the England has totally gone because I'm confused on this one, but also the fact that the mind is going. But I support this work in terms of moving forward on it from PSA level, and I no doubt feel that there's many of us on this that do so. It is also probably highly recommendable that we also look at the history of our own PSA Pasefika movement so that we can actually make a more concise and solid grounding for this, to share not just amongst ourselves, but also to those of whom we represent in the organisations that we are part of. Apologies, Dennis, this is partly to do with you, but also to do with in-house as well. Thank you, and ia manuia lava whongtanga, soifua.
Thank you.
Is Cliff still here to ask his question?
I think Cliff is here. I can see his camera. However, Cliff, we cannot hear you.
Okay, well, whilst we're waiting for Cliff, Dennis, did you want to provide a response to Alice's comments?
I think she already provided some framework where to go from here, and I will leave it to the PSA Pasefika Network to discuss that. But I'm just loving actually discussion because, like what I've said, we need actually to take that space, especially the tripartite one. Something that even the CTU must support and continue to echo that. And I will be echoing that in the CTU affiliates meeting as well.
Thank you, Dennis. Brian, if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you, Nia. Thank you, Dennis, for your presentation. Just echoing the words of my colleagues in acknowledgement of your presentation and the information you've provided thus far. Look, a couple of thoughts came to mind as I was pondering your presentation. The first one is the commentary in regards to government's reaction to these initiatives and the path that they're choosing to go through in terms of due diligence. I guess, is there an appetite in central government at the moment for any of these small wins through the all of government procurement messages to start implementing those initiatives? That's my first question. And the second one is really to reach out to my fellow Vamoana delegates. Whilst they're new in their roles, there's an opportunity because this is an emerging theme that's coming through. And so there's an opportunity for us as Vamoana delegates to engage with our respective organisations to take the signals that you've presented today back to our organisations and just have a discussion with them to say, look, this is on the horizon. It's an issue that's happening. Where are we placed as an organisation in terms of the many contracts that our respective organisations put out to the business and the communities? Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brian. In terms of procurement, yes, one thing I like about this government, they are very active in social procurement. So, for example, there is some rule now in the construction industry, but I think it's becoming across the board. My only problem is that where is the role of procurement if ever it's going to be RSE, because we are dealing with producers in the country and they're quite feisty and they're quite opinionated as well. And I think this is the point that we need to assert our space there. And I think for one thing I would like also to emphasize in this discussion is that I'm going to be suggesting this politely, if ever the Pacifica Network can also engage with high commissioners, because the high commissioners, they also appoint someone from the Pacifica community to basically conduct some investigation or just look at the well-being of RSE workers. Some of them are paid for that on a part-time basis, and they're the one dealing with the labor inspectorate. But I think more engagement with the high commissioners, because we have to voice out our concerns. And I'm also concerned about if ever these things will not be addressed, especially exploitation of RSE workers, what happened to them is that their lives are also at risk when they go back home. And that's why we want High Commissioner to take some responsibility that those who complain will also be looked after by the government, by New Zealand and by the sending country, because otherwise no one will be voicing out their concern if ever we will not address that problem.
Hey, thanks for that, Dennis. I thought that RSC, they have an accreditation program. Do they?
Yeah, they do have. So what happened is that in the accreditation program, the high commissioners are also involved. They're also being asked. And my understanding when I engage with some of the high commissioners, it's not only New Zealand where they will supply seasonal workers. Japan is also asking now workers from Pacifica. And I think Canada is also asking workers from the Pacific nations as well. So by engagement with our high commissioners, I think we'll be able to find more information, because some of them had been voicing out that the only way we keep on sending Pacifica workers to New Zealand, only if ever you're going to be paying them above the minimum wage. And I think that also influenced why some of them are paying 24 bucks an hour, but it may go down again to 23 bucks an hour. But yeah, so that's the situation right now. But I think you are in the position to engage with those high commissioners. Yeah. All right, all good.
What are the time frames on the submission?
The time frame is actually until July in terms of our submission. The city is preparing one, First Union is preparing one, other unions are also doing the same thing. We'll be good if ever the Committee Pacifica will be able to do some submission as well.
Yeah, we're going to have a conversation with PSA about a PSA Pasefika or PSA as a whole and that. But also, I mean, in amongst this group, you belong to all sorts of communities, church, sports, music, whatever, and that. And these are conversations you can have in your communities, like Brian was saying, with regards to your workplaces and that. I mean, not just your workplaces, but the communities that you live in, that you could have conversations in that space too and make submissions.
Yeah.
I want to jump in there and ask my question, because I think it builds off Stella's one, and it also builds off Stella's question yesterday, because we were part of the MB discussion. First and foremost, thank you so much, Dennis. It's been awesome listening to you. Just your wealth of knowledge, but also the work that you're trying to achieve by just influencing the system and looking at how we can change behaviors through legislation. And I think that's very powerful. I completely agree with the focus around, especially for New Zealand, around the SMEs, because we know that, we're predominantly made up of small, medium enterprises. And one of the things that I was hearing is that there's a very high trust model when it comes to due diligence. And it sounds like that you'll be putting mechanisms in place for reporting, for assessing and supporting businesses to recognize that, what are some of the things that they need to watch out for in terms of their supply chain and, what's risk and so forth. But what I was wanting to hear more about is the mechanisms in place for reporting, for vulnerable workers to be able to report themselves or those around them.
And that was part of Stella's question yesterday about how can we motivate our people to understand what exploitation looks like, what modern slavery actually is, because sometimes there's a tension between their cultural values and the way that they behave driven by their cultural values. And, you know, at the other end of the spectrum is actually slavery or exploitation. So that's what I was kind of wanting to hear your thoughts around, because I think for me, it's more around how do we provide our vulnerable workers with the tools, the resources, and increase their confidence around, first of all, how to recognize, and then second of all, how to report. Because I think looking at the PSA Pasefika, and we're going to have this discussion of how we're going to frame our submission, it's about the workers themselves, having the tools and having the mechanisms in place that they're confident in, but also how can they leverage off their communities, you know, of their church leaders, of the union, of their aunties, uncles, cousins, who will also be aware of those channels and of those education channels and the mechanisms. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's another
Sorry,
good question.
can I just add to that too, Dennis?
Yeah, all good.
Thanks for that, Fana. I mean, a huge example is the recent story with the minister and those workers and the cultural norms that existed in the church and the communities they lived in that were all involved but not involved in that, which is exactly what Wafina is talking about. That was a normalized situation where those workers thought it was okay, but it wasn't okay.
I know that for the fact, because it's not only happening within the Pacifica community, it's also happening in the Asian community. We also conducted, for example, some form of relationship exploitation within the Sikh community, the Sikh temple, within the Filipino community, using their religion. The Migrant Workers Exploitation Review is being done at the moment, and the intention is that we're going to be having like a one-stop shop, so meaning one information and a single group of MB employees taking over those migrant workers exploitation cases, including those complaints. So that is the idea for that. So they have now started doing that information drive, but I don't think that the information is still out there. I think it's still limited. They need actually to fund that so the community will be fully aware where to go to if ever you're a victim of exploitation. But one thing that I realized, because I've been doing this job for 14 years, ever since I arrived here, is that workers will be encouraged to speak up if there is actually a wrap-around support to them, if there is community. Because if ever they feel that I'm just going to be doing this alone, they will not take the risk. There will be a lot of anxiety, fear, deportation concerns. Many of them will be saying that I came here because I would like to help my family back home. And if ever I have to undergo that nitty-gritty or that process, then it's not me. So it's very important that if ever we stumble with this kind of cases, there's also a proper training to that. We need to provide a wrap-around support, including accommodation, including helping them to find some work, including providing them some counseling, some advice, some community, encouraging them actually how to smile again, because it's similar when you're a victim of domestic violence, similar situation for victims of migrant workers exploitation. They can't sleep, they're fearful, they fear that they will be targeted in New Zealand and even back home. So the wrap-around support, the community is very important. So Pasefika Network is a community. So if ever we can discuss about that wrap-around support, we can help these workers. But if ever we don't have that, we just simply ask them, ring this 0800 number. I tell you what, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. They will not take the risk. Yeah. So what we have right now, our biggest advantage is that we have Pasefika Network, and that alone is already a community.
Thank you, Dennis. I think that's good. It segues into the next question, of which I'm asking on behalf of Cliff. So everyone pretend I'm Cliff. Well, I'm not Cliff, but I'm just asking on behalf of Cliff. So Cliff's question is, I am a proud Samoan and my parents are two of the most God-fearing Christians there could be. Why then did it take so long for Joseph Matamata's case to get to court, let alone be prosecuted? I am sure this sort of modern day slavery has been happening for years, maybe even decades.
Yeah, well, I think that's another good question, because even as we asked that question, even our own Committee Pasefika. But when you look at the case, Joseph actually used his family relationship to exploit those workers. He even provided accommodation to them, and he actually had shown himself as he is the one providing help to them, that you can stay in my house, I can provide you food, in exchange you have to work for me. And some of those workers thought that, hey, I was able to work in New Zealand, so thank you, Joseph, for doing so. It's like paying debt and gratitude. We owe this to Joseph. And in exchange of that, when they're working for Joseph, because Joseph acted like a contractor, like a labor hire company, so he's also giving them some allowance money, not their wages, but allowance money. And it happened for so many years. So it's really hard to complain when you are living with the person who is actually exploiting you. And it's not only about the case of Joseph Matamata. I conducted some rescue operations of migrant workers that I have to pull them out from the houses of their employers. Even actually dairy farm workers, I did that. It's not easy. I'm not going to be recommending that if ever you don't have enough support, because it could actually lead to violence as well. I have to involve the police. But in that situation of Joseph Matamata, he actually used the relationship, because he also threatened them that if ever you complain, there will be ramification when you go back to Samoa. Yeah, and I agree. I don't think this is an isolated case. I think this is very systematic way of doing so. But some of them just been scared when the case actually came up to light. And I must say, it's not only happening within the Samoan or Pasifika community, it's also happening in other nationalities. They also use the same scheme. In New Zealand, there's no such thing as domestic helper. But in my experience, some of the workers have been treated as domestic helpers in New Zealand. And I dug up some case and I represented one Filipina who actually been treated as domestic helper by a Fiji Indian real estate. They're quite rich real estate. She's so skinny. And the way they operated, they're contacting the family back home that we are looking after your mom, and she's living with us. But you know what? She did not have an opportunity actually to use her rest days for 2 days. She only had 4 hours rest days in the weekend, and that is including sending money back home. And they keep on assisting her to apply for English visa, so she can keep her immigration status in New Zealand. And it happened for 7 years as domestic helper. And because they are real estate operators, she's not only working at home. So imagine that if ever family members arrive at 10 p.m. or 12 midnight, she is obliged to wake up in the middle of the night just to serve them food. That's actually the practice. And if ever they renovated a house, because that's how they operate, they buy house out there and then they're going to renovate that. You know what? Instead of getting a cleaner or cleaners to clean up that renovated house, the person actually had to do it by herself. All right. So we represented her and we actually won the case. That's actually a 7 years salary for her. And the government even provided her a visa, so if ever she would like to remain in New Zealand. But because of the trauma, in fact, when we rescued her, she was vomiting. And I did not understand why a victim of exploitation will be vomiting, because we had a lot of experience. And I was not only doing that, I involved the Runanga, I involved the First Union Committee Pasefika. I don't know if ever you know Terry and Mark Muller. They were also involved, and all of us were not aware about the experience of a victim, why they were vomiting at that time. So we tried to understand and learn that specifics. So even the mental health, the counseling, it must be part of the rescue operations as well. Yeah. So yeah. So and then we had those people. This is what I'm pissed off. Those people who've been exploiting this domestic helper are actually leading members of their church. Would you believe that? And yet they can hide from that church image, but they are exploiting these people. And at that time, we don't have immigration actually or exploitation law in New Zealand, so we cannot expose them publicly. So we entered into settlement, but I wasn't happy because I would like to expose them publicly. So I decided to give the footage to the media, and the media published that. So at least we were able to expose them as well.
Can I just jump in there and ask one more question?
Yeah.
You know, I really like how you talked about the wraparound service, because I think that's instrumental in terms of people's not only recovery, but understanding that if they were to have the confidence to speak out, there's actually some like a safety net for them. Can that be written into the legislation? Like, can the mechanisms that are required to be able to support that wraparound, can that be written into the legislation? Because often when I see like survivors of exploitation or like enterprises set up to support like women who have gone through sex trafficking,
yeah.
And this was something I got involved with in Hawaii. It's actually people doing it out of the goodness of their heart. There's nothing in place for them to be able to do this. So with the support for people, can that be written into the legislation, or at least the mechanisms that are required?
It can be part of our submission. Look, the migrant workers exploitation, the select committee is under Ibrahim, the Labour MP. I think he's still encouraging submission about that. But you're right, if ever it will be part of the written submission. Put it this way, if ever you're a victim of domestic violence in New Zealand, there are some funded organizations where they can accommodate those victims. They can live there for a certain period of time. And I think the same should be also applied if ever you're a victim of migrant workers exploitation. For example, in the case of Joseph Madamada, if there are organizations funded by the government who can actually say to them that if ever we file this complaint against Joseph, we're going to pull you out and we'll put you in this place. And that place should be confidential, because I work with some domestic violence victims as well. So I understand their operation. So that could also be part of the wraparound support. Unfortunately, we don't have right now. We're just relying on the activity of their communities. Imagine if ever there are no communities providing the wraparound support, I don't think we can actually get more cases of exploitation in New Zealand. And those communities are the unsung heroes. Okay.
Thank you, Dennis. Members, does anyone else have a question or questions?
Oh, someone texting Gloria Bale.
So Dennis, following the presentation, you'll be happy to provide us with links, or in the presentation that you did provide today that has all of the information, those of us who are interested to, proceed with supporting.
Sure.
Is it all contained within that presentation?
Yeah. I can flick you this PowerPoint presentation straight away. Yeah. And I don't know if ever you have access to this. This is also, I don't know if ever we can provide this information to you or send this to you. I've been given by the government a lot of copies this recently. But if ever, for example, there will be like a City Committee Pasefika meeting, I'm happy to share these documents. and we can request more information from the MB team. Just let us know how many copies you would like to have.
Dennis, if any of our members here are wanting to invite you to a church whānau or sports whānau or anything like that, would you be up for something like that as well? Like if people are involved in their community groups and that and would like to put this on the agenda, would you be?
Sure,
and
sure.
PSA Pasefika can act as a conduit to kind of be able to manage that.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to actually do that.
Yeah, if any of you are having national delegate meetings or anything like that, you might want to think about inviting Dennis along within the time frame of the submission.
Yeah.
So with my my role on the committee Pasefika, the CTU committee Pasefika, that's how I was able to cross paths with Dennis, and I was fortunate to be present when he did this presentation also. And so Dennis did actually reach out wanting the involvement. So the cry was loud, wasn't it, Dennis? That you wanted a Pasefika involvement. So we're very grateful, you know, to be part of this, and that you're so happy to share your knowledge and experience with us, and also with Stella, the likes of Stella and others who are on this call who are well versed with a lot of the stuff that has actually been unfortunately going on in the community. So does anyone else have any questions? Because we've got Dennis here for a few more minutes. Yeah, so grateful, Dennis, that you were able to spare this time in your busy occupation. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us, Dennis, maybe?
Well, I think I've already actually shared all my thoughts, but I'm looking forward for more collaboration because I work closely with our committee Pasefika, and I'm just so happy that we just elected our first Pacific secretary who looks after transport, logistics, and manufacturing. I advocate for diversity within our team, and that's why we keep on employing more Pasefika organizers. Because if ever you're Pasefika organizers, most of your Pasefika members, I think just to give you some idea, 2/3 of First Union members are Pasefika. So that's the reason why we want Pasefika voice within our union.
Yeah, we need more Pasefika woman voices as well.
Exactly. And our representative is Antonia, who's doing an amazing job at the moment. Yeah. Cool. Not only First Union, but the entire movement, eh? Yes.
Absolutely. But congratulations to Mark. And that was fantastic. I used to work with Mark, so it was great to hear.
Yeah. So that's the first, and hopefully you're right. And next time we can see a Pasefika woman taking that space. Yeah. So all good, everyone, if ever there are no questions. And thank you, Nia, for inviting me here. I'm happy to continue our engagement. Feel free to flick me an email. Yes, I'm busy, but hey, I always read the email. Won't be able to respond straight away, but I can tell you that, yes, I'm aware, just in case you email me and you haven't hear anything from me.
Oh, no, Dennis, you know, thank you so much for making yourself available so early on, and just with your patience, you know, with us. I just wanted to, I do recall, I did read somewhere that you were quoted in the Otago Daily Times when you were asked about, you know, if you were a new edition. Do you recall that question? If you were a colour, the colour of a crown?
Yeah.
And you mentioned in reference that you liked the colour black and red.
Yeah.
And I thought it was quite, you mentioned that part of your response, red is an intense colour that is packed with human emotion, such as compassion, love, and empathy, and the fact that we all bleed red, regardless of wealth, status, or means. And I think as a unionist, and I think as a leader of where you are, and to be present here with us, you know, just sort of feel that, you know, the passion and the fact that you're always so keen to help. And your presence here has been most welcome. And we look forward to continuing working together with you, you know, and just utilising the wraparound system, of course, with our Pasefika family, with all of you. And so on behalf of our Pasefika Network Committee, as well as our network. We want to say thank you for coming today. And I don't think there's any more questions from the rest of the team, and I'm sure you want to have a break because you've spoken for quite some time. So we'll be in touch, and just as an expression of our gratitude, we'll be in touch with Me Aloha for you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I love your background, eh? It's good. It's beautiful. All right.
Yeah, very calming, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. That's right.
Thank you. Thank you
All right,
so much
you, everyone.
from all of us. Thank you. Oh, Dennis. Dennis?
Yeah.
Oh, can we can everybody can we have a photo with you on screen?
Oh, sure.
EJ, if you can take the picture.
Actually, it's a pink day today. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got EJ that's on, if he's able to take it for us. EJ, can you hear?
He's asked if people can turn their video cameras on.
Yes, please. Just one moment. And smile. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Dennis.
right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone. Thanks,
everyone.
EJ. Bye. So, everybody, thank you. We're actually ahead of schedule. We're due to have a break at 11:15, but we can have a break now, and if everyone would like to come back at 11:30. So we'll see you at 11:30 for our regional group who's going to be coming on. Thank you.
EJ, can you post the photo up here for the gram, please?
Raota uma arotuma nefu ewo ne Pasefika.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm good there, Fina.
Oh, good. Hi, Cliff. Hi, Heel. Kahu.
Back on board.
Hi, Kat.
Hello,
All
Fina.
right.
Good to see you in pink.
Back.
Yeah, good to see you in pink too.
Hope everybody had a good break. Had something warm to drink. It is really cold up here in Auckland. We got a lot of the weather's really Auckland weather. Rain stop. You see the clouds, you see sun, but then it starts raining again. There's a bit of a storm coming up. So hope you guys are keeping warm and safe. Before we get through into our next part, thank you again, Nia, for bringing Dennis on board. That was a really awesome session. Just really good to to get into know more about the modern slavery, and the exploit here in that's happening within New Zealand. And I just hope that everybody invite Dennis along into their agencies, into their national delegate meetings and that. To see there's a lot of passion there and drive. So, and also I think Nia did mention the presentation will be shared. So we'll get that to be sent out via email. It'll be made available to everybody. I can see on board now that before we start our next session that we have our other co-convener on board as well as our men's rep, Olualo and Ki. If you guys can please both introduce yourself.
Okay,
Kia ora tātou katoa toi te aroa mata te toa mā lole sulfo mau malangi e mama. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Uluaro Whainga Mareko, but everyone knows me as Walo. And I am the current co-convener alongside Ofena for the Pasefika Network as well as the Pacific Rep on the Executive Board. Whawhai mori avnoa.
Thank you, Walo. Key.
Yeah, I'll malo lava sui for everyone. I am Keith Frost. I am the PSA Men's Pacific representative. I work for Arapotama as a program facilitator, and it is cold in Invercargill today. Yeah, it's awesome to be able to be part of this whanau, and it's lovely to see some faces that I recognise. So, yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, thank you to have you guys on board. So this next session that we're coming into right now, so just a bit of like refresh from our last whanau. I wasn't on board for that whanau. However, I do know that it was outlined that there was a need as our workload was getting a bit big, that we did need kind of like a subcommittee to form within our network, like a little subcommittee for our regionals, where we had a few people who volunteered into that group to start working, doing some work around our regional committee. So that I know there was about four or five, am I right, Olualo, that actually put their hands up to form this committee, and they have been meeting. They have started meeting. I know a few Zoom sessions have been on board for this committee. And that was, I think, led by Matthew Jameson, as well as Brian Palalangi, Leah Rees, who's not here with us at the moment, who's given her apologies, and Catalina, and Ulualo himself. So, and I've currently just jumped on board as well, just to help with taking minutes for this group. So they have started up having talks around like some work around the regional, I guess, how it will work, and like just some engagements that can be happening in that space. So I'd just like to introduce Matthew Jameson, who's currently leading our regional committee group, who will be giving us a bit of update on what they've been doing and what's the plan for the what's their plan next.
Thank you, Mashiko. So yeah, once again, my name is Matthew Jameson, and thank you very much. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge, obviously, the committee, and also especially our 17 or 18 Vā Moana delegates who do sterling work. We really appreciate, as a member of one of the few members in the 6,000 that we've got currently at the moment. We appreciate your work that you're doing for all of us in the Pasefika Network. Okay, so as per the introduction, we had a meeting on the 19th of March, and hopefully you'll see in the invitation the briefing paper that I'm about to just take a couple of minutes just to go over. At the end of my presentation, we can ask some questions, and my fellow committee members can help me out if I've missed anything, okay? So we'll start from that meeting on the 19th of March of this year. Just like Ko mentioned, we've identified there are some needs, and we need to create an environment for Pasefika workplace delegates. So that is our Vā Moana, that's also our Pacific members, and also our PSA organisers, to come together to share ideas, learn from each other, and celebrate success. I quite like that word, celebrate success. And we've had hopefully we've got more to come. Where the inclusion of members allows the delegate to have a recruitment pathway, and to support the sustainability of Pasefika leadership. And I guess Stella just said that we need, more women in leadership roles or organisation roles. We also need leadership roles. There will be opportunities for leadership roles, and we need you, the members and delegates, to step up. We need to provide guidance and assistance to our Pasefika workplace delegates. The Vā Moana delegates and their prospective PSA organisers is undertaking of their roles and responsibilities in regarding Pacific workers. within their organisations. We need to support the PSA National Committee Pasefika and deliver on their work plan. So how do we do this? Good question. So as Karu said, there's 5 members that we volunteered to form the initial committee, and Catalina, Leah, Matthew, Walu, Brian, and Kahu. So we stepped up and we're true to our word in the sense that we want to be part of this organisation to improve it. So the group had their first meeting virtually on the 31st of March, forming the PSA Committee Pasefika Regional Working Group. This was involving a group that inclusion was available to any member who has interests and a skill set to advance the tasks of the group. So what is the work plan? The following list is what the group identified needs doing. Whilst it is not any particular order, it informs and provides a line of sight for the development of the work plans, prioritization of the tasks that emerge as a group meeting progresses. And it's a list, it's a living list, living document. And it can be added to if need to, and items may be removed or once they're completed. So what are those 5 items? We need to ensure that a list of specific identified members within the PSA is current, and how often it is updated and by who. 2, we need to agree on 1, the form, and also 2, the function. 3, we need to understand that the document and how the regional structure will allow it. 4, and formally provide within the PSA Committee Pasefika. 4, what is achievable within the next 3 to 6 months. We need to assign a timeline to our work plan. So what do we need? When do we meet and where? The group meets fortnightly via Zoom for 1 hour. It's between 6 and 7 on a Thursday night in our own time, but that's how committed the committee is. And we've had 3 meetings, probably 3.5 so far. If you turn over, so once again, there's a list of names in the table of the committee members. As you can see, some of us are also via minor delegates. So not only we have our substantial role, but we volunteered in many other roles, and we wear many other hats. On behalf of the committee, we'd like to say thank you for their commitment to the committee, and thank you for the members to contribute to this briefing paper. We can now take some questions from the members or the Vamoana or the organisers if they have any questions they want to ask myself or the committee.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, just came in briefly. Jennifer here. I had a quick go through of the briefing paper in regards to this committee. So well done to everyone trying to progress things in this space. I just want to know, I'm not a delegate, I'm a member. Where do I see myself in that space?
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff, for your question. Well, hopefully we will be focusing on Auckland. So if you're a member first in Auckland, we will be, that's our starting point. That's the initial conversation we have. And hopefully we want to, Auckland we want to get this up and running probably before elections next year, but obviously the committee will make the final decision in terms of the ins and outs. But to answer your question, we hopefully you as a member have the opportunity to step up and become one of those leadership roles in the regional committee so that we can help, and that helps us with the national committee. Because what we're trying to do is take the load off, as Kahu was saying, the workspace, we've now grown up to 6,000 members. The committee can't do everything. Just paying your fees and just being a member, while not being active, we need some active members to help us. That's just my personal opinion. Hopefully that answers your question, Jenny. Gemma, is there any other questions?
Oh, sorry, I just want to follow up with that question. I think, just being 3.5 weeks into the new role that I currently sit with at Kainga Ora, one of the things that I've tried to, to do as I had that conversation with you, Matthew, as well, when I contacted you, was like raising visibility for the Vamoana delegates during the AMMs and whatever forum and hois that we have, because on my first week here, there was an AMM that came out for where I'm based at the moment. And then I did have that kōrero with the organizer, and I said, why isn't the Vamoana delegate present on this forum? Why isn't Pasefika included in these meetings? Because what we need to know is that as the members, we pay fees. So we should be part of driving, the engagement with our officers. So one of the things that I currently worked on in my first week here was trying to have that inclusion and visibility for Vamoana delegates to be present on every forum, so that people know, like me, our members know that actually we do have a rep on the table, we do have a voice on the table, and that person is so and so and so. So I've advocated for, also had a kōrero with the Vamoana delegate for Kainga Ora, and that is Whamika, and I'm happy to support her visibility and happy to tautoko and api her wherever possible. But that's one of the things where we can bolster and empower and increase the participation and visibility of our Vamoana delegates. It's having them present on the little things, which eventually build to bigger and greater things. Yeah, so I thought I'll just add that to my kōrero, Matthew.
That's fine. So the Vamoana delegate in Kainga Ora does the Wellington regional meetings and attends the Auckland national meetings as well, and does send out newsletters to the Pasefika network. So the Pasefika members in Kainga Ora are well aware of, unfortunately you just started there, Jennifer, but they're well aware of the great work that Whamika has been done in the Kainga Ora space. But yeah, there's over 42 AMM meetings, and obviously VAR has a substantial role as well, but this is not in terms of what we're trying to organise now, but so her Samtra role, I don't think it will permit her to attend all of those AMM meetings. And some of those AM meetings, there isn't a Pacific staff member in there or a Māori member to that fact. But yeah, this is something we'll take into account next time we'll do the AMMs, but we are engaging with our members at Kainga Ora. Is there any other feedback in terms of the briefing paper?
If I could just comment in, Madam Chair, if I can take a few moments here to assist with responding with Jennifer. So thanks, Jennifer, for your question and your enthusiasm to get behind the Vamoana delegate role within your respective organisation. It's people like yourself on the ground who have experience in this space that will nurture the Vamoana delegates. We've identified, came out in the last virtual funnel, that there is a need to support our Vamoana delegates given the infancy of the role, and that a lot of our workplace delegates, whilst they carry the mantle of workplace delegate, they've also put their hand up to be the Pasefika workers' voice within their respective organisation. And they're still coming to terms with what that role looks like in terms of its delivery. So having you and others around within the respective enterprises to provide that support and nourishment on the ground is where you fit into this exercise. The regional structure we're looking through for is to provide that environment to ensure that there's a comfortable and safe environment for our delegates to share and learn off each other, but also to provide an education space for the delegate and the organizer. We've discovered that there are some organisers who are still coming to terms with the role itself in terms of the Vamoana role, and so they're still understanding that. So this organisation setup is to plug into and assist our national committee and the delivery of their work programs. And one of those is to assist in providing an environment where it's safe and that we can teach each other, learn from each other, and grow our capability within that environment. Thank you.
I think we had Lita. Was it Lita who was next to ask a question?
Hi. Yeah, I wasn't gonna ask it because it kind of related to the last one, but I work for an NGO in Auckland, and there's no representation like here at all. They didn't even know about like the Pasefika grouping, like network, until last week when I asked the lady who came in. So yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, how can we get more help in this space? It's very yeah, white. I don't know what other what other word to say, but yeah, yeah, I just wanted to ask how we can get more support here. There's only we have a lot of support workers at Pasefika, but in-house at the office there's only maybe 4 of us. And before, yeah, I asked questions, even my colleagues didn't know. So yeah, I just wanted to ask. Thank you.
Oh, that's a great question, Lita. And so carrying on from what Brian was saying, so CPS sector, which is where all of our NGOs sit in terms of PSA, works very differently to the other 4 sectors. And so I'm grateful that you've raised that there's a lack of visibility, because that's what we've found with a lot of our Pacific members within the CPS space, is that there's a lack of visibility, only because how some of our NGOs work, like for example Presbyterian support, there isn't necessarily like a physical base. And so in terms of trying to connect in with other Pacific members, or trying to have comms sent out to raise visibility, because it looks very different within the sector that you currently sit in. And so one thing we have been working with the CPS sector committee is trying for us as PSA Pasefika to understand the best ways to communicate with our members, because what we've found is that we've been sending out a whole lot of emails, but there's been a lack of response in terms of attendance and in terms of responses back to some of our emails. And so yeah, definitely would I probably like to connect with you offline to figure out how we can better raise visibility within your organization, but also try and also circle you into some of the engagements that we've been having with some of our Vamwana delegates, but then also those that have just raised their hand to be like a contact person, so that the visibility continues within their organization. Does that sound like something you would be interested in, Lita?
Yeah, thank you. That would help a lot. Yeah. In terms of attendance, I don't know about the other NGOs, but like to attend the meeting today, I had to really fight for it, because they didn't understand why I had to attend. So yeah, but thank you. Yes, that answered. That helped a lot. Thank you.
No worries, and yes, no, definitely hear you on that one. That is also the other big difference about the CPS sector, is that there's a massive lack of understanding from the employers, but also in terms of unionism, there isn't necessarily want for that to become any stronger within their organizations. But yeah, we'll definitely connect with you so that we can carry on this conversation further. Thanks, Lita.
All right, did anyone have any other questions?
can I just quickly jump in here?
Yeah.
So I just want to test, because I know it's a bit hard to try and register whether or not people are like, oh, yep, cool, because I get it, or yeah. So if I can get you to hover over the reactions button, and so if you understand what Matthew was talking about, if I can get you to push out a thumbs up. If you didn't quite understand what Matthew was talking about, can I get you to send out a heart?
What about the option if we wanted Matthew to speak again, but a condensed version, like bullet points, please?
No worries. Okay, cool. So there we go, Matthew. Some of our people have understood what the Talanoa is, and then others haven't. So if you can break it down for us, please, bro, it'd be much appreciated.
Okay. Thank you much there. Okay, so we need to identify the Pasifika members who are currently on our list. Like I said, there was about 6,000. So we need to get the list as accurate as possible so that we can hopefully in the future break that list down to regional regional basis. So for example, in Auckland, let's say if there was 3,000 members in Auckland, we need to break that down into possibly 4 sub-regions, and then so that we can get a voice. We need some leadership in those roles to lead those regions, but also connect with our members is really important, because that's something as Pasifika we need to unite and come together. We also need to agree on a form and also what the function of these regional forums are. So there may be Pacific issues within the region or Auckland region that in your enterprise that you may have a common interest. And as a collective, we may, as a voice of, strong voice, we may be able to bring that up to the National Committee. Also, we need to understand the document, and the document, this is only a briefing paper, so there's more detail to come once we get an endorsement from you, the members. We need to take it up to the committee to finalise some more work that needs to be done. But hopefully this is just the conversation, a starting point, because we're going to have concentrate on Auckland first, and obviously we need to, branch out to central, to Wellington, South Island, and some other small centres, so that all our members, regardless where you live, we should all sort of be connected to a regional committee, and that forms strength and bonds so that we can go to our national committee. We've already got good Waimana delegates, so we already have leaders within the 6,000 strong membership. Is this achievable? Well, in the next 3 to 6 months, hopefully we can get this, get some endorsement, but also then we need to do a lot more work behind the scenes so that we can get it into some sort of, like I said, live document, but get some action points into place. How's the structure going to be formed in terms of reference? How's the election process? How is it going to be elected? What is the term? And we just recently had the terms of reference at the higher committee, and there may be some sort of similar terms of reference in that as well. We also need to assign a timeline because we have elections next year. So we know that any proposal is only going to be short term, and we need to nut out the maybe some go through, because we've seen with previous experience back in 2009, 2008, these committees were formed before. So we want to just but we need strong leaders, we need momentum, we need a good sound work plan, and we may need some, some funding also. So, but these are just a briefing paper at the moment, and we're just seeing whether you, because we need your feedback. This cannot work without you feeding into it, and we're only just the mouthpiece trying to put this information all together. But hopefully if this works initially, we can get Auckland up and running, and then hopefully duplicate this plan further down to the other parts of of New Zealand. But like I said, the initial committee has come up with some ideas. We're just running some ideas past you today. Some more ideas will come as we as a team, generate these ideas. And just like the members who said, thanks to all the committee members, especially Brian, Kat and Walu, to bring all these ideas together so that we can test them with you, the members. That's the most important thing, is the members, because we can all put something in place, but the members, we want them to attend the meeting. Walu said we're not getting much feedback with the regional newsletters. So that's obviously because of COVID and blah, blah, blah. Hopefully one day we're at a point where we can all come together, share a bit of a joke and a smile, share our culture, and, just be together. Because unity is really important as a union. Hopefully that sort of summarizes briefly what we're trying to achieve. And like in the briefing paper, there's going to be members who have a good skill set that we will need at a regional basis, and then that may step into the Wā Moana. It may step into a lot of other opportunities has presented itself in the last couple of years because the success of your committee to take it to Congress, and now this is where we're at the moment. We haven't had a regional committee since 2009, so we're now 2022. So it's been long. It's been a long time, but yeah, we need your support. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Matthew. Did anyone like what Ulualo said, that was that a bit more clearer for you guys to understand? Can you guys give a thumbs up? Or if what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put our email address into the chat where you guys are able to ask further questions around this. If you guys have any more burning questions around what Matthew's presented for you guys, and if you want one of us to be in touch with you guys, feel free to send through an email through to that email address I've just put up in the chat.
Hi, Kaho. I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So I've been a delegate since 2019, and to be honest, the PSA structure has been quite confusing. And I really only got the structure like a year and a half ago. And my only concern is with, new members and new delegates coming through, are they able to understand the different structures and the different layers that we have in place? Or how will that confuse them? Now that we've got Wā Moana, now we've got another working group, and then we've got the committee. How do we all tie into each other? Like, how does that work? Like, how do we link between, between all of that? I mean, it's taken me some time to understand. How will a new delegate or how will new members understand this new structure? And I think it's really important because, I like to keep things simple and I like to understand what I understand. And if I don't understand anything, I'm like, okay, how does that fit in? Where do I fit in? Where does a member fit in? And I feel that if they don't understand it, it's going to put them off. And, we have to kind of make sure that the members understand where they sit in the structure, or what does this regional committee mean for them? And if they don't know, what's the benefits or what's the value? So I'm kind of speaking from a new set of eyes, thinking, okay, if I was to join tomorrow and I was given all of this, would I understand? Would that put me off? It'll probably will. And it took me ages to understand where I am now. And I'm kind of fearing, we've got the committee, we've got our Wā Moanas, and now we've got this. Like, what does that mean? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. It certainly is a complex structure, but when we have a basic understanding of where we sit, it makes more sense, and I think it's it would be most appropriate if we could have something that was a flow diagram to get a better understanding. I think as the committee, we've been working on a simple structure that is in a PowerPoint presentation about how the PSA flows, but even more specifically about the structure of the new framework that we've been able to create in the last year and a half. So I think you've highlighted a very key point for anyone who is coming into the PSA structure who identifies as Pasefika, that they are able to have a pack so that they can see the points of contact that are available to find out new information. But it's something that we have been working on, and I dare say your concerns in just raising this is we need to be able to get that information out to you so that you have a better understanding about what we do as within the Pasefika structure, but also about the key supports and the people that you can connect to, so that for your understanding. It's a great point, and it just highlights that we need to get that out and finish that piece of work sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Ki. I think Ki neglected to mention that he's leading that piece of work within the committee. Just trying to provide more clarity, especially for our new members. And I think what's important to remember is that this committee has been in place, I think, for 24 months. We've experienced a great growth. Our 23 Vamwana delegates have been around for maybe about 11 months. And my understanding of the regional committee, and especially listening to Matthew and the team speak to it, is that it's another way to alleviate the pressure and I guess the responsibility that's been put on this committee. Since being in this committee, one of our key priorities have been establishing Vamwana. So it's been advocating for Vamwana, putting systems and processes in place in terms of recruiting our Vamwana delegates, you know, from experience being in trying to organize what the Vamwana network looks like in terms of bringing you all together and having those consistent meetings to know more about your role and how you contribute to the wider PSA and the Pasefika movement. So yeah, I think Ki is definitely leading that space in terms of trying to put information together, simplifying the information because there's just too much information, and also putting a visual aid to it in terms of where people fit in and what the actual structure looks like, what we look like in comparison to the Runanga, for example, and I guess what our focus is for the next 12, 14, 16 months. So yeah, a great big thank you to Matthew, Brian, Kat, Kahu, and the rest of the team.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yep, go ahead,
thank
Brian.
you. Yeah, great question, Fuller, and to the right place to raise your concerns. And so the emergence of this regional working group, because that's all it is, it's a regional working group, came out of the 19th of March virtual funnel. There was a concern raised and a need identified to have a regional structure. That regional structure is emerging and evolving into what's being socialized within today's funnel. So in terms of socializing the connectivity through the structures, yes, it is a challenge, and that's a challenge that will be taken on board by the National Committee, because the National Committee that the Regional Committee will be working under their guidance. And so socializing how that comes together in the landscape of PSA's Committee Pasefika is one of the opportunities that we can present back to members. First and foremost, the role of the Regional Committee is to provide an environment to support the Vamwana delegate and the organizer in terms of raising the awareness of the roles. and to assist in that space. And then secondly, to provide a bit of a pathway for our Pasefika members to sustain the leadership in the roles that progress in the structures that we currently have. So it is a bit of a challenge to get it off the ground, get it in place. There's a lot of moving pieces to the puzzle, but a very clear signal today is that we need to be joined up with the membership and bring them through, keep them informed of how these connections all come together. Because at the end of the day, the work we do collectively is there to benefit our Pasefika workers, who in turn will benefit our Pasefika families. What is good for Pasefika is good for New Zealand. Thank you.
Malo, Brother Brian, I hope that kind of clarified your question for you, Fu'a.
Yeah,
Can I
thank
just
you so
add?
much for that. Yeah.
Thanks, Fu'a. I've just got to clarify what a Vamoana delegate is. So for some of you on this call who may not be aware of what a Vamoana delegate is, and this was just sent to me, a Vamoana delegate is your Pasefika delegate within your workplace. So we have a Vamoana delegate in each of our agencies, and it's basically a for Pacific by Pacific role. So the focus of the Vamoana delegate is on the well-being, the issues of our Pasefika members. So we've got our Vamoana national delegates, and then we've also got a Vamoana delegate that sits at the sector level of each of our sectors, and that's a way of having Pasefika representation at those levels in terms of decision making for the sector. And then we also have a Pacific voice at the executive board level, which is Ulualo as our co-convener. And the Vamoana delegate has only been around since November 2019, and the first lot of Vamoana delegates were elected into their roles last year between June and July. So that's why I say that the roles have been around since for the last 11 months. So yeah, if you have any more Vamoana questions, please feel free to ask.
Nia.
Well, thank you, Kahu. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that with regards to the Vamoana delegate space, if you're Pasefika, ideally you might want to be a Vamoana delegate, but you don't have to be a Vamoana delegate if you don't want to be. I'm not a Vamoana delegate, but you know, it's a choice, and it's a fabulous thing to actually be a Vamoana delegate, because you will get to, as Athena said, and the rest of the committee, you get to represent, and the other members who are on here, you get to represent our Pasefika family, our Pasefika whānau, brothers and sisters, uncles, aunties, nephews, nieces. But you can also take pride in also just being a regular delegate also, because it's important for us also to mix with the mainstream as well. But yeah, the whole purpose of Pasefika Network is to support each other, because we also do have other Pasefika allies who aren't necessarily Pasefika Vamoana delegates as well. So it is a job that, as Matt highlighted with the meetings that the regional group are doing, they do it on a voluntary basis. And a lot of us have actually been doing a lot of things in our own time because we want to. We're not paid to do these things. But this is why we appreciate any feedback that you have, and not to be shy and just to come forward and share, because the committee is only as good as the membership and vice versa. So we're all here together. We're here to represent you. And for any of you who may want to join the committee, because we won't go on forever remaining on this committee, then feel free to jump in and put your hand up for the elections next year, you know, because I think some of us, we've kind of done our dash, and probably it'll be nice to have some new blood, new innovative, fresh ideas, and there's a lot of youth there. And I think that'll segue into our next section. I'll leave it with Kahu, but yeah, I just wanted to say that, to share that this is one big family and this is how we learn. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nia. We have, is it Ikala?
Hi, it's Esther.
Oh, Esther. Esther.
Sorry, I'll turn on my camera so you can see me. Can you guys see me?
No.
Okay.
Your camera's off.
Hi. I have a question. Is the Vaimoana delegates different from the normal Pasifika delegates that we have here under PSA, or are they the same? Yeah, that was my question.
And that's a great question. And so the Vaimoana delegate, and I'm guessing based on your Zoom name, you are MSD or OT?
MSD, sorry, I'm from Wellington.
All good. So we call it MSD have a PSA structure where they have a national delegates committee, and you are very fortunate that they actually have your Vaimoana delegate online with us, and that is Ape Fusia who is waving. And so we call it within each organization. You would have one Vaimoana delegate who will sit at the national level, but then you also have delegates and members who will sit under the Vaimoana delegate who would help support some of the work they're doing.
Okay, cool. Oh, awesome. Thank you.
No, all good, all good.
Can I just do a reply back? Sorry, what was your full name?
Esther.
Oh, hi, Esther.
Hello.
Yeah, so I haven't been able to meet everyone across MSD. We're, like I was saying in our chat, we're starting our annual members meetings starting from next week. Everyone should have got the comms out. So I will be looking forward to meeting you.
Yes, absolutely.
Soon. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions to our regional team? Or to Uluwatu or Ofaina? Kenny? Is it?
Sorry, are you?
Toga?
Yes, Kenny. Hi. Hi, everyone. Apologies, this is my first time attending one of these PSA Pasefika events. I'd just like to ask in regards to our, allies with the Pasefika space, is there some sort of list? Is this more so for reassurance? Because I'm all for a space, made for and by Pasefika. I don't, and I'm not trying to start anything here. I'm just going to say it. I just want that reassurance that our allies are actually our allies. Because just going off the, the talk with Dennis and the questions leading, that were asked afterwards, I think it's just best that we have that reassurance of who we network with, who are we currently working with, and so that we're all on the same page, instead of having to, I don't know, inform or educate all the time to a point where, we shouldn't have to be repeating ourselves, if that makes sense. Like, we should know the task at hand and let's address it. Yeah, I just want to know if there's such a thing, a list or something.
Uluwatu?
What's it called? In terms of the list and our allies, well, fresh today, allies. We call it. Are you talking about allies outside of the Pasifika network within the PSA space, or are you talking about allies for example? If I was the Vaimoana delegate of justice, who would my allies be within the Pacific space?
Okay, more so outside of the Pasifika space.
Oh, okay. Yep. No, that's cool. So, in terms of a list, there isn't necessarily a list that we have. In terms of our allies, well, I mean, there are some people who are allied friendly, and then there are those where we have to have a relationship in order to be able to push some of those priorities on behalf of Pacific. And so some of the people that would make up part of that list would be the operational arm of PSAs. So that's all of our local and national organizers. That's the national sector leads for the 5 sectors. That's the assistant secretaries, as well as the national secretaries. In terms of the PSA governance space, would definitely be the 5 sectors, which is public service, state service sector, which is all your crown entities, local government sector, DHB sector, which is the district health boards, and then lastly the CPS sector. And then we would also have tirunanga o Ngātua Āwhina, which is the Māori governance structure within PSA.
Okay, awesome.
And
Thank you.
just on the back of that, Walo, is just, those people that you're talking about who are allies are those people who have shared goals and outcomes that they want to achieve, and that they are always the potential. Now, it all comes down to the relationship of who is wanting to support each other, and that's where it can get finicky and sometimes difficult. But as long as that we understand that the need for strategic alliances and looking for allies that we can both work together to achieve the goals, and in our case for our Pacifica people, then there's always potential for a better relationship to be formed. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catalina.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, could you close off with a prayer?
Oh, sorry, we're closing off. Okay, sorry everyone.
We've only got 1 minute.
Okay, please bow our heads in prayer. Ake he tai te atoa, ko iku ma te manuia te mātou honotanga I tēnei aso, ke wikia pēa tō ingoa. Amene. Thank you, Lord, for our whono that has ended well today. May your name be praised. Amen.
Thanks, team.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks everyone for coming. See you again.
See ya.